Good afternoon, guys. I asked those questions about the difference between persuasion and manipulation because not everything that influences us is legitimate. And I make my living in customer service, so I'm fairly well read and fairly well studied on influence and persuasion. But I want to throw something your way that you may not have thought about, and then I'm going to make a recommendation based on it. And this one is open for discussion because it is not a conversational tactic. So it's not as black and white as maybe some of the other ones. I'm going to say that one of the things that most influences us is social proof. What do I mean by that? Show me your 5 closest friends, and I'm going to show you probably where you're getting most of your ideas. Who is it that you're trying to impress? Who is it that you're conforming to? I'm betting that when you get into a group of your friends, there's probably some positions that you would never admit that you have. All of this to say, our peers, peer pressure, our peers are influencing what we believe so much more than reason and arguments, and it's just a fact of life. It's a reality about human nature. And because of that, I think that it's a perfectly legitimate thing to do to invite your friends to church. I've heard some people sneer at that. You ought to just tell them the gospel. And that's true, you ought to tell them the gospel. But you're hearing it from Jake that it's a perfectly legitimate thing to do as an ambassador for God's kingdom to invite your friends to church. Because I'm going to admit, I hang around an array of different people, and not all of them are Christians. And it's interesting that when people are pressuring you, or whenever it's the cool thing to do, to relax on this, or to admit that, or whatever, you want to do it. When you get around a lot of people who believe a certain way, you want to make concessions, or you want to fit in. I am no different. And I'll tell you, you'll start considering worldviews and positions more carefully when you have friends who hold to those positions. You sure will, and you see it in society all the time. So if you want your friends to open themselves up to consider the gospel or to learn more about Jesus, invite them to church, and I'll bet that softens their heart.